Carolina Panthers up next, 5-12 last year, picking in the top 10 once again. But the trajectory on the upward swing here, I would say, for the Panthers. They're over-under, still just 6.5. And not to oversimplify here, but which Bryce Young do you get here? Do you get the continued good play from Bryce Young? That's going to determine a lot. I think they're moving in the right direction as far as adding guys like McMillan on the outside, Tetairoa McMillan on the outside with the 8th overall pick at receiver. The offensive line looks decent, and they've added a whole lot of free agent additions and some youth on the defensive side of the ball where they really struggled last year. But the Bryce Young story, after getting benched last year, where we were legitimately debating, like, is he done? Like, is he done in Carolina? Are they scouting quarterbacks? Are they going to draft a quarterback in the top 10 again? He comes back, and I'll let you explain. The stat lines didn't say it, but the film said this dude balled out once he came back from getting benched last year.
I mean, not even asking, are they now looking beyond Bryce Young? It was kind of assumed they are. I mean, we're now in this world where we've been doing this so long, we're never saying anything in absolute terms. So it was always like, yeah, I mean, theoretically, he could come back and maybe rescue his career, but it probably won't happen at this point. And yet he did. Like, they eventually gave him the job back because, what's the point in starting Andy Dalton beyond a certain level other than Bryce Young had played himself to the bench. And really, from the moment that he came back, he was a completely different player. And as you said, the numbers did not always bear that out. I mean, there are games in there with like 158 passing yards, 203 passing yards. In that game with 158 passing yards, he had a PFF passing grade of 91.2, right? He had 4 big-time throws. He had like some seriously big plays, but almost every time he made a really high-end play, receiver dropped it, or a foot is slightly out of bounds from the receiver, or a guy makes a break on the ball and just breaks it up. Like, his best plays, almost all of them, were not coming up and landing in the positive side of his ledger. And again, you can do this with every quarterback and say, wow, look at these plays that didn't count. And yes, but the reason we're bringing it up is because it was an abnormal ratio for Bryce Young in these games, right? That's the point. Yes, you can cherry pick individual plays from any quarterback in the NFL and say, look, his stats should have been better if these had just come up his way. The point is, though, it was happening at a ridiculous rate for Bryce Young towards the end of the season. Clearly, he was playing significantly better football. And my question is not, which version of Bryce Young are we going to get? I kind of assume we're going to get the same guy starting the season. My question is, how fragile is it? Now, having seen him basically melt down, which is what happened at the start of last year, I'm wondering how close that is to the surface. If something happens that is a challenge or, throws a roadblock in his way, is he only ever a few plays away from melting down again, losing all his confidence, going back in the tank? Or was that just a young quarterback that hadn't really found his way yet, and once he had, he's a different player?
The other thing I'll add is, even if he doesn't revert back or whatever, like, we saw Sam Darnold legitimately revert back to what he was after playing so great, like had 2 games that looked like his first couple of years, which were awful. I mean, there's also just how good is Bryce Young generally. Like, if we got a whole season of how he played last year, is that a top 10 guy? Is that a top 12 guy? Is that a top 8? Is it top 20? What is his actual baseline? We know QBs and player development aren't just straight linear. They're not perfect storylines. It's not as simple as Jordan Love flipped a switch and Trevor Lawrence flipped a switch and now they're good in perpetuity and now they're a star. We've seen those guys go through their own ups and downs. So it's easy for us to say we felt like Bryce Young flipped a switch. He went from looking completely overwhelmed on an NFL football field to looking like he belonged. And then beyond that, not only did he belong, but he was leading game-winning drive opportunities against the eventual Super Bowl champion Eagles that probably should have come through if Xavier Legette doesn't drop the pass. He's going toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. They win 44-38 against the Falcons team that we just said is pretty good. Michael Penix Jr. did a great job chucking the ball down the field. Bryce Young's going throw for throw with him in Week 18 in a game that doesn't matter for the Panthers, but did matter for the Falcons. And so we saw all of that from Bryce Young. But like, what is that? What is his baseline of week to week? So I was most impressed with his natural playmaking started to come out, made some plays with his legs, made some plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket, a high percentage of big-time throws, whether they were caught or not. Now, if the playmakers are a little bit better, can this offense be that much better with Dave Canales?
I mean, he almost beat the Eagles in December.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, this Eagles team that stomped everybody towards their Super Bowl run. Like Bryce Young almost knocked them over late in the year. I'm also so number one, I expect Bryce Young to be good. My question though is that little thing hanging over him. How close is he to going back to just a disaster again? But then you have the work that Carolina have done to put a team around him. The offensive line, they already did that a year ago. That was one of the reasons we were high on him and the situation going into last year, because they rebuilt everything. The offensive line was good last year. Maybe it's got some, maybe it's lacking stars, but I think it's very solid across the board at all 5 positions, and that has some value to it. So particularly for a quarterback like Bryce Young, short. He needs a pocket. The dude needs a bigger pocket than other people do. I mean, that's a fact of life, right? Clearly, he answered the question last year of can you play at the NFL at a high level being 5'10"? The answer to that is yes. That doesn't mean you don't need a larger pocket than other people, as much as humanly possible. So I think it's an important thing for him to have a solid offensive line. The receiving core was supposed to be rebuilt a year ago. It hadn't really worked out. Xavier Legette was disappointing year one. They still lent so heavily on Adam Thielen. Now you add in Tetairoa McMillan to that group, whether he's wide receiver 1 in this draft class or 2 if you put Travis Hunter as 1. He's one of the most imposing receivers in this draft class. That buys Xavier Legette some time, maybe a different role to develop into what he can be at the NFL level. Maybe he becomes more of a DK Metcalf, more one-dimensional vertical threat type of player. But you have Adam Thielen there still. Jalen Coker was a surprise package last year. You add Jimmy Horn Jr. this year in the draft as well. I'm kind of excited by what he can do. Also, sneakily, Hunter Renfrow is back in the picture, having been like an insurance salesman or whatever he was. Hunter Renfrow is like one of the most difficult to cover slot receiver, right-running players in football. If you're adding like big possession type of receiver in Tetairoa McMillan, who's dangerous after the catch, Thielen is really good. Legette can be a big play vertical threat. Renfrow is your underneath route running savvy type of guy. This is a lot of skills we're adding to Bryce Young's ability to get the ball out.
Jalen Coker with one of the better undrafted free agent seasons that we've seen last year. I mean, they got some bodies there. We'll see how good McMillan is, though. I think they're obviously counting on him a lot. I think he's in that uber possession type of range. He's got a big catch radius. I think he does everything well. Not everything great. I think he does everything well, gets open, good after the catch. I think he'll be he has the high volume target potential, I think, for Bryce Young. Also have Chuba Hubbard, who is a workhorse at running back, made a lot of big plays for them. Rico Dowdle comes in after his decent season with Dallas. They were just writing about how they loved Trevor Etienne, where they drafted him as a rookie running back. So I think they feel good about the running back room, the offensive line, pass catchers moving in the right direction, and Bryce Young, of course, turned the corner last year. Defensively, they gave up over 530 points on the other side of the ball. They had the lowest pass rush grade, team pass rush grade by PFF. And so they spent the offseason trying to figure out how are we going to solve that. They were in on Milton Williams until late. Instead, they bring in Tashawn Wharton, Bobby Brown III. They bring in Pat Jones on the defensive line, and then draft Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen. So a lot of bodies, veterans and youth, trying to fix that pass rush. Hey guys, real quick, only 40% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the action.
Yeah, I love what they've done on offense. I actually think that side of the ball could be pretty good. Their entire defense, number one, I expect it to be the worst side of the ball for them. But number two, it sort of feels like their entire defense has been a consolation prize, you know? Like the project was supposed to be Milton Williams, and then the Patriots were willing to go to a financial number that the Panthers weren't, and they sort of pivoted and put that money into Tashawn Wharton and Pat Jones and blah, blah, blah. And then in the draft, everybody, I think, expected them to go with a pass rusher at the top of the draft, and instead they go with Tetairoa McMillan. And it's not that that the pass rushers later on were a consolation prize because they chose that, right? But it's like instead of a potential first-round top 10 pass rusher, we're going to come back and get a Nick Scorton and a Princely McMillan, and get lower down players than that. And that's fine. I think these are entirely reasonable and logical ways of approaching it. But this is kind of what the Atlanta Falcons did last year, right? It's like we're not going to get the guy up at the top. We're going to draft the quarterback in their case, but then we're going to come back and we're going to just load up with lower level guys. And the problem is for them, the lower level guys were lower level, and it didn't solve anything. So I think that's a question now for Carolina is, did this sort of consolation prize offseason on defense actually improve anything, or is it going to visibly look like we just got a bunch of players that weren't the primary targets?
One other thing we have to mention, too, last year, they were without Derek Brown, probably their best overall player. Had been very durable, played over 1,000 snaps the previous season. He only played one game last year. Big body in the middle, extremely strong, moves the pocket as a pass rusher, pushes the pocket as a pass rusher, but also outstanding in the run game. So I think that's what you're up against. I think in the aggregate, they should be better. I just don't know if I don't know that this turned a weakness into a strength just yet. But having Derek Brown back, that does help a lot of their issues up front. Overall, I think the front seven's probably on the weaker side, though, relative to the rest of the league. Linebacker as well. A lot of questions at that position. And then in the secondary, I thought they made a really nice, right before the season, move to bring in Mike Jackson as a buy low. He became a dependable corner for them opposite J.C. Horn. They just paid J.C. Horn a ton of money. I think that looks like a reasonable 1-2 punch, and they spent a lot of money on Trevon Merrick coming in as a free agent safety. So I think the secondary looks a little better. I think they've got some more versatility on the back end now than they did last year, just overall coverage ability. A lot of their defensive success, though, comes down to, like every team, how well can they rush the passer with 4? How well did the two Utes, the two edge rushers there, Scorton and McMillan, if they hit the ground running, I think that changes the fortunes a lot for this defense.
It does. And then I think J.C. Horn, now that they've got so much money committed to him, is a huge sort of variable there as well. I mean, he has been in the NFL for 4 years, has played 2,263 official snaps, according to PFF. Over 1,000 of them came last year. So in 4 years, basically half of his playing time came last season. I mean, they now need him to stay healthy because they've paid him like one of the best corners in the NFL. And we don't have a huge track record of that being the case in the NFL. So that's not without risk, that contract they handed out. Look, I love the direction they've gone on offense. I think the defense is still very much a work in progress. And we'll see how much of a work in progress.
All right, man. Over under 6.5, and we haven't referenced strength of schedule a ton here. I'm looking at PFF's rankings on that. Every NFC South team is on the easier side because they all play each other and they're all not ranked highly in PFF's rankings. I think that's just the general way that this works. So I think any of these NFC South teams, because of that, you sneak a few wins here and there, you go on a little run because theoretically you have an easier time of it. Even the division champion Tampa Bay Bucks. Will the Panthers? It's also year 2 with Dave Canales, right? He did a really nice job with Baker Mayfield a couple years ago, and I think you could give him some credit here for, after benching Bryce Young, getting some really good play out of him. Another year with Canales running the show here, we could have another big step forward here for the Panthers.
I don't know that this gets enough play that, again, part of the reason we were high on Bryce Young going into last year was Dave Canales, right? They'd upgraded the line. We thought they'd upgraded the receiving core, and they upgraded a coach, and we were excited by what that could be. I don't know that Dave Canales had gotten far enough into his sort of let's build the offense around Bryce Young by the point Bryce Young played his way to the bench, right? The first 2 weeks, I saw very little of here's Canales helping Bryce Young. Here's him pushing some easy buttons for Bryce Young and really maximizing what he can do. I saw a lot more of it when Bryce Young came back into the lineup, though. I thought they got on the same page at that point, and you were seeing clearly Bryce Young is playing better football, but also Dave Canales has a much better idea of what to do with him. He's moving Bryce Young around. He's getting him out of the pocket. He's moving the pocket so that it's not a static thing. I thought that combination was working a lot better as well. So I don't know if it just took time, if Bryce Young was not sort of ready for it at the start of that time, but I do think now we're in a much better spot with those two working in synergy. The strength of schedule thing, just going back to that, remember when we looked at this at schedule time, it's a weird year where basically only the 3 easiest strengths of schedule and the 3 hardest actually matter. The rest of them are all kind of within the margins. It's only the very extremes where I would say it's a big deal. So, yeah, the Panthers are on the easier end of the spectrum, but they're in the group with 25 other teams.
It's also year 2 of Dr. Eric Eager.
The doctor.
With the Carolina Panthers. Yep. And so we're expecting big things for the Panthers in year 2.
I think the doctor should. We're getting, training camp now. It's preseason. We're getting there's a lot of photographs of training camp and staff, and the gear and all that kind of thing. I think the doctor should break out the visor.
Yeah, he should send us. First off, he should send us like a selfie or something from camp, and we'll just put it on here.
We could do that.
Yeah. So let us know what's the gear look like here in 25.
Well, I see I think when you're at his level, you don't really do selfies anymore. You become papped. You get like snapped, right? You're just in the course of being you just appear in people's photographs because you're important and you're there.
Find right? Google images. I'm sure there's something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure they exist. But what I think he needs to adopt the Gruden visor. Yeah. I think he'd be a good visor guy. He's got the full head of hair. He's got the rest of the gear.
Visor would get you over the 6.5. I would say.
Visor gets you over 6.
Over under 6.5 here, Sam. Where are you going for the Panthers?
I'm going to go over. I'm confident in what this offense can be. I'm more concerned by the defense, but I don't think that matters as much.
All right. Same for Eric. We'll go over for our friends. Over 6.5 here for the Panthers.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
Check the Mic is live every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit this subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
The all-knowing algorithm is convinced that you'll like these videos as well, and frankly, who are we to argue?